Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the SIWI Seminar, Harnessing the Digital Revolution for Water Innovation. This session is presented to you by George Bauer, the Director of Digital Utilities Program at GSMA, and Panagis Katsivelis, founder and CEO of Enthik Technologies, a water tech startup based in Athens, Greece. So before we start, I wanted to ask you how many of you here represent the private sector? Okay, so let's say 50% of the participants. So this is going to be very exciting for you, I hope, as it is for me, because we are going to hear very exciting perspectives from different players in the sector, from private innovators, from private funders, and we will also have the opportunity to listen to a very exciting panel discussion. So, this seminar is a three-part seminar, and it concludes today, and it is organized by the Chinese Research Center for Eco-Environmental Sciences, okay, you can see my slides, the World Bank Group on Water, the San Diego State University, Enthik Technologies, and GSMA. Before we start, I would like to ask you to try and connect to our polling software using the QR code up here, or you can type in the address directly on your browsers. So this is also the first question of the day. I can see some raised cell phones, so I will not move directly to the next slide. Okay. You can use the same QR code up here. So, and also the URL is on the top left. So the first question of the day is, what are the crucial factors that startups and private sector innovators consider in driving the digital transformation of the water sector? So it's a bit of a loaded question, but it will help you familiarize yourselves with the software. All set? Okay, so throughout the session, we are going to ask you to submit your insights through this polling software. And we will, at the end of the session, we will create a word cloud as we did for the other sessions the previous 2 days. So the seminar started on Monday with the first session being about the digital transformation as a concept. We talked about how the digital transformation is a multidimensional concept. It's not just about the adoption of IT solutions, it's also about the enabling environment and financing tools. We discussed the shift in the leadership mindset that needs to happen for the digital transformation to take place. We also agreed that we need champions from different regions of the world to lead the way towards the digital transformation. And we agreed that there is no single solution provider. We are working towards an integrated ecosystem of experts with different roles, different disciplines of different backgrounds who all contribute to the same ecosystem. And also addressing the question about how the digital transformation reaches the low and middle income countries. We are slowly moving towards a more accurate, affordable, actionable, and autonomous solutions. In a single word, more accessible solutions. In the session that happened yesterday, we talked, things got a little bit more heated, as you can see from the word cloud. We talked a little bit more about challenges and opportunities that the data revolution is facing. So World Bank yesterday presented a very interesting survey, the findings of a survey that displayed that utilities typically do not invest in digital solutions because they find that there are many complexities in doing so. So it's not very easy moving from data to knowledge to action for water utilities because there are multiple issues at hand. There are data quality issues, data governance issues. It's all about having the right data at the right time in the right format. So we also found that there are multiple opportunities for solution providers to package data for different stakeholder types. So for example, you could have different data products for politicians, different or data reporting tools, for example, data products for utility workers, and all these data products could be defined based on application scenarios from real-life cases. And last but not least, we talked about educating and adapting the workforce to address the knowledge gaps that exist in the traditional water utilities. So today, we are going to talk about the way forward. We are going to take a more pragmatic approach. We are going to talk about the private sector and all the key ingredients that the private sector innovators need in order to succeed. So we are talking about partnerships, public-private partnerships, financing, regulation, and the enabling environment. So the session is structured as following. We will start with a keynote presentation by Satoshi Ishii of the Asian Development Bank. Then we will give the floor over to Chloe Poulain to listen to an abstract presentation. Then we will give the floor over to George Bauer for an interactive audience engagement session. And last but not least, we are going to have a very exciting panel discussion. At the end, we are going to have some closing remarks and time for Q&A. So I'm going to give the floor over to Satoshi Ishii, right, who is a director in the water and urban development sector at the Asian Development Bank. He is based in Manila, Philippines, and he is going to talk to us about supporting scientific advancement and the digital transformation of the water sector. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Satoshi Ishii. I'm the Strategy and Partnership Director in ADB. And I kind of now seen that what have been discussed the last 2 days, and maybe some part is a little bit overlapping with what World Bank colleague has already been discussed yesterday. But and I also understand 50% of you coming from private sector. So what I'm going to say is something like already pretty much known by you, but then please bear with me and, kind of step back a little bit. And I just want to present how we see as the digital transformation. So the digital ecosystem in water sector comprises various interconnected components that work together to enable efficient water management and data-driven decision making. You may have heard about the term like, Internet of Things and smart meters, data analytics, AI, asset management systems, SCADA, digital twins, you name it. There is an ecosystem of players in this space that there is both enablers and the barriers to the successful implementation. I will share some lessons learned from our experience in promoting a digital transformation in the water sector. The digital ecosystem in the water sector involves a diverse set of players. Collaboration, cooperation among those players are essential to build a robust and integrated digital ecosystem in the water sector. For example, governmental bodies, regulators, at local, regional, and national level, plays a significant role in shaping policies, regulations, and initiatives that encourage and support digital transformation. Technology and business solution providers, including startups. The startups and established technology companies bring innovation and new ideas to the water sector. They develop and offer cutting-edge digital solutions, including IoT devices, data analytics platforms, and smart water management systems. Academics, conducting studies, developing newer technologies, training professionals, fostering innovation. And finance and investors, including ADB, providing loans and grants and technical assistance to the government and the private sector or through PPP. Digital transformation in the water sector offers a wide range of benefits that can significantly improve water management, conservation, and overall efficiency. For example, I have no time to go through it, but I just want to maybe pick up some of them. Customer experience, the green box. The digital technologies empower customers with real-time information on their water usage and associated costs, encouraging water conservation and more responsible consumption behaviors. The predictive maintenance. By leveraging the artificial intelligence and machine learning, the water sector can predict water demand, identify potential issues, and optimize operation proactively. The predictive and analytics helps utilities stay ahead of the challenges and plan for future requirements. Increased capital efficiency. Digital transformation provides a wealth of data that can be analyzed to gain valuable insights into water consumption patterns, consumer behaviors, and operational performance. Data-driven decision-making leads to more effective strategies and policies for water management. Increased resilience. Digital solutions enable remote monitoring and control of water infrastructure, reducing the need for manual interventions and field visits. This leads to operational efficiency and cost savings for water utilities. The uptake of the digital transformation in the water sector can be facilitated and accelerated by the various enablers that create favorable environment for the adoption of digital technology and practices. The set an ambition at the CEO and board level, having a long-term vision and commitment to digital transformation starting at the top level and trickle down is essential for water service providers to embrace and sustain the adoption of digital technology and practices. Build an innovation culture, raising awareness about the benefits of digital transformation and educating stakeholders about available technology and best practices can help overcome resistance to change and encourage the adoption. Develop architecture of optimizing data use, for example. Developing industry standards and promoting interoperability among different digital solutions. Facilitate seamless data exchange and integration, making it easier for water utilities to adopt and implement digital technologies. Cultivate your digital ecosystem. Collaborate platforms and knowledge-sharing initiatives enable water utilities, startups, researchers, technology providers to exchange ideas, share experiences, and foster innovation. The uptake of digital transformation in water sector faces several barriers that can slow down or hinder its progress. Overcoming these barriers requires significant collaborative effort and among stakeholders. Some of the key barriers include multiple departments, ensuring interoperability among different digital systems, and technology is crucial for seamless data exchange and comprehensive insights. Cybersecurity, for example. The water sector deals with sensitive data related to the infrastructure and consumer information. Concerns about the data security and privacy can lead to reluctance in adopting digital solutions. Resistance to change that maybe yesterday Warban colleagues must have been discussed. The water sector, being critical infrastructure, is risk-averse in general, and stakeholders may be hesitant to experiment new technology due to concern about potential failures or disruptions of their service. Legacy systems. The water sector often has fragmented data and relies on legacy systems that might not be compatible with the modern new solutions. The role of startups, we think, is very key and important in this space. We have found that the private sector, and particularly startups, providing a significant, impactful role in driving the digital transformation. Their innovative technologies and solutions and disruptive approaches leverage emerging technologies to address changes in water management, conservation, and distribution. These companies can bring fresh perspective and agile approaches to the industry, enabling more efficient water monitoring, leak detection, smart water infrastructure. The agility and collaborative nature are helping to shape more sustainable, efficient, and resilient water ecosystem. As they continue to push boundaries and experiment with new ideas, startups are likely to play an increasingly crucial role in shaping the future of water management and conservation. Startups often offer scalable, most cost-effective solutions, making digital transformation accessible to smaller utilities and communities that might not have the resources to develop their own technology. Furthermore, startups are quick to adapt the changing market needs and customer demands, making them more agile in responding to emerging water challenges. Lastly, the ability to pivot and iterate their solutions enable them to keep up with the dynamic nature of the water industry and stay ahead of innovation. We ADB has been promoting digital solution and innovation as one of the key crucial components to achieve our Strategy 2030 pledges, water secure and resilient Asia and the Pacific. We are testing and implementing projects in various scale in Philippines, Cambodia, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and People's Republic of China. We started collecting lessons for those ongoing projects, share among project officers, and reflect into the project design and implementation arrangement. This will enable us to accumulate institutional knowledge and adapt faster to promoting them. This one is rather straightforward, but if you know the challenges in our developing member countries, it's still very important points. The secure political buy-in, from the client, find a champion is always very important, align with the existing regulatory framework in their country is also promoting the first take-up. Consult early and deeply with users and beneficiaries. Of course, you know much more than us, and identify lasting digital trends and needs. Not always the best technology is the bestseller. Foster ownership for sustainability. This is very important because what we are talking about is very long-term investment. However, normally turnover of government are very short. Be creative, adaptive, and realistic. And coupled with appropriate capacity building program, which we are very good at, and develop strong sense of collaboration among stakeholders. Lastly, I just would like to mention about, in addition to promoting and striving digital solution to uptake with the project, ADB established a Water Resilience Hub last year, where we share tools and approaches, information about the partnering activities. One of the features is the e-marketplace, where we offer the online platform that all the solution providers can present and pitch their solution, where all the ADB officers and then our government clients can listen and then try to match. We will continue to build this online platform to communicate with all of you. If you have time, please visit the website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we will give the floor to Chloe Poulen. Yeah. So this is your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Chloe, working for the Aqua Institute. And so today I'm going to present another example from data to knowledge to action. And I'm going to present you how to use machine learning to develop a new proximine test to target proper water subsidies in Ghana. So this work was funded by the Hilton Foundation in collaboration with Safe Water Network. And we published a paper in Development Engineering in 2022. So in Ghana, according to the Joint Monitoring Program, 54% of the households in the poorest quintile do not have access to basic water services, versus only 6% in the richest quintile. And according to some studies, and some of them are from the World Bank, subsidies in the water sector are often ineffective because they are inadequately targeted and fail to reach the very poor. So, for example, the most two common type of subsidies are the consumption-based subsidies and the connection subsidies. So they are designed for pipe water system and usually happen in urban area. And so they leave behind people that do not have access in pipe water, sorry. And so that's why service providers and governments are proposing to target water and sanitation subsidies based on the poverty status. So there's already a few methods in Ghana to identify poor households, but we wanted to see how can we use data and develop a proximine test based on machine learning. And we wanted to assess how this new model would outperform the existing methods. So we compared 5 methods in Ghana, 3 PMT proximine tests. So a proximine test, it's a statistical model that allows you to assess whether the household is poor or not. So it's based on easily quantifiable proxy of wealth. So for example, we're gonna ask questions like, what is the education level of the household, or what are the types of assets owned by the household, or for example, what is the material used for the dwelling's construction. So this is the type of question we use in a proximine test. So we're going to compare this new PMT based on machine learning, the poverty probability index, which has been developed by Innovation Poverty Action, and that consists on 10 questions, and the DHS Wealth Index that include 100 indicators that correspond to approximately 15 questions. So we're going to compare those 3 PMT with the community-based targeting, which is a method we ask community who's poor and who's not poor in the community. And finally, we also compare all these approaches to the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program, also called LEAP, which is a social protection program in Ghana with existing lists of beneficiaries. And it's a hybrid method between the PMT and the community-based targeting. And so we're going to compare these 5 methods with respect to their performance, the stakeholder and community perception. We want to see if these methods are acceptable by the communities, and the implementation costs. So first of all, how did we develop this machine learning-based PMT? So we used the Ghana Living Standard Survey, which is a national census survey administered by the Ghana Statistical Services between 2016 and 2017. And it includes a lot of indication about the economic status of the household. We also have the information of the poverty status of the household. So we know whether the household is poor or not. So we use machine learning technique called feature reduction to reduce the 600 plus variables included into the GLSS into 47 variables that are relevant to predict poverty. And then we compare the performance of this new ML-based PMT with 47 variables to the PPPI, and so we use the Ghana Living Standard Survey as the gold standard here. So we usually use the accuracy, which is the number of the percentage of the household, poor or non-poor, correctly predicted by the model. So you can see that the ML-based PMT is able to correctly predict 87% of the household versus 81% for the PPPI. The sensitivity is the number of poor household correctly predicted by the model. So the ML-based PMT was able to predict accurately 73% of poor household versus 57% for the PPPI. And finally, the precision, we had a 55% precision with the new ML-based PMT versus 40% with the PPPI. But you saw that the ML PMT has 47 variables versus 10 variables for the PPPI, and so the more variables you have, the easiest it is to assess poverty. So to be able to compare apple with apple, we took the top 10 variables out of the 47 variables to be able to compare it with the 10 variables of the PPPI. And you can see that even this reduced model is performing better than the PPPI. So unfortunately, we were not able to compare the DHS Wealth Index against the GLSS because some indicators needed to compute the DHS Wealth Index were not available in the GLSS. And so that's why we conducted some field evaluation in 3 rural towns in Ghana. And then we ranked the different models in terms of performance, acceptability, and scalability. So for performance, we have 2 criteria. The first one is to assess the number of exclusion and inclusion error. So the exclusion error is the number of poor that we left behind, so the number of poor that the model cannot identify as poor. And the inclusion error is the non-poor household identified as poor. So we want this type of error to be minimal. But for this, we need the gold standard and to be able to replicate those models on the GLSS. And so we were not able to do it for the DHS, the community-based targeting, and the LEAP program. And so that's why we identify some vulnerability check and wealth check to identify households that are more vulnerable than the rest, and then we were able to compare the model between each others. And so you can see that the ML-based PMT and the DHS were the best model in terms of performance. The second indicator we looked at is the acceptability among the local stakeholder, local government, and the local community, because when we deploy model like this on the field, it's important to have the support from the local government and the local communities. So we interview local stakeholders and community and ask them a little bit their perception of the different models. And we identify two important metrics, which is the fairness of the model and the transparency of the model. So in terms of fairness, people usually prefer the proximity test because their main concern about the community-based targeting is that they would leave people behind. Sometimes community members can forget who's poor, who's not poor. And the second concern was that some people that might be shy, might be too shy to say that they are poor in front of their community member. And in terms of transparency, so people prefer the community-based targeting methods because they felt that people might lie when they reply to a survey questionnaire because they are not in front of communities, so they can lie. That was their main concern. And you can see that the LEAP program was not acceptable by the local government or the community. They didn't trust this model at all. And then the final metrics we looked at is the scalability, because we want to scale up this type of approach. So you can see the best score here is the LEAP program, because for this one you just have to retrieve the list from the local government offices. And the second one was the CBT. For this one, you don't need to knock at each door and to develop a survey for everyone. And it's also because it doesn't require any type of computation, so it's a little bit more easier to implement. So to summarize, if we take a step back, you can see that the PMT, and especially the new ML-based PMT, ranked a little bit better in terms of performance and acceptability. And the community-based targeting, it's better for in terms of scalability. And so that's why I would recommend a hybrid approach that includes the ML-based PMT and the CBT. And it's also because some studies show that there's a slightly different perception of poverty between the PMT and the CBT. Usually community, they have a better sense of long-term poverty and chronic poverty, while the PMT usually focused on short-term poverty. So that's why I would recommend a hybrid approach here. And so finally, right now, we are developing the model on the field with Safe Water Network. So we develop an Android app to include the ML-based PMT. So you just download the app on your phone, you do the survey at the household, and then at the end, you're able to see which household is poor or not. So thank you for your attention.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask about the perceptions and how you really asked about it, because it's quite a nebulous thing to do those sorts of assessments of what groups think. So, yeah, if you could say anything more about how you investigated that. Yeah,
so we conducted in-depth qualitative interview. And we interview 6 government officers and I think 17 community members. And so it was 1 or 2 hours in depth of interview, but like their perception of the different methods. And so yeah, and after we just like analyze the results to assess their perceptions on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and apologies for not introducing you properly. So, Chloe Poulen is also a senior researcher and program manager at the Aqueya Institute, based in Nairobi, Kenya. So, now the floor belongs to George Bauer, the director of the Digital Utilities Program at GSMA. He's based in London, UK, and the floor is yours, George.
Thank you, and thank you, Panagis, for the great introduction, kind of picking off where we left off in the previous seminar sessions. Satoshi, thanks so much for outlining the work that the ADB is doing in this area. I'm really excited to bring this conversation forward between DFIs and startups and private sector innovators in the water sector. I think it's very important. And finally, Chloe, thanks a lot for your presentation. It's also great that you're working with Safe Water Network, a former grantee of our GSMA Innovation Fund as well. So great to see those connections. And we're really passionate about this subject of pro subsidy provision and smart subsidies, and have a report on innovative financing in the water and utility sector in general coming out later in the year that's going to pick up on some of that. Today, I just want to, before entering the interactive audience component in the panel discussion, I just want to briefly tell you a bit about what we do in the GSMA and what our work has to do with water. As Panagis said, I work for the Digital Utilities Program within the GSMA. The GSMA as a whole actually represents mobile operators worldwide. Microphone up. Okay, I'm taller, sorry. Presents mobile operators worldwide, and you might wonder, what do mobile operators have to do with water service provision? So within the GSMA, we have a GSMA Foundation, which is mostly donor funded, but also partly supported by our members, the mobile operators. And we're supported by a range of different donors, such as FCDO in the UK, GIZ, CEDA, the World Bank, and the overarching aim of the GSMA Mobile for Development Program is to support the Sustainable Development Goal agenda through digital innovation. We have teams working on humanitarian innovation, climate tech, agri-tech, but I sit in the Digital Utilities Program, and our mission is to support urban resilience in low and middle income countries by enabling access to essential utility services through digital solutions and innovative partnerships. And when I say utility services, I mean water, sanitation, waste management, energy, and waste management. Obviously, utilities is defined differently across the world, so just highlighting that point. I'll tell you a bit about how we work. So we provide a lot of grant funding to early stage innovators working across utility service delivery in low and middle income countries. In my next slide, I'll expand a bit on that. Then we do a lot of research and insights to better understand the developmental and commercial impact of some of the innovations we directly support, but also the broader ecosystem. So that's a big part of what we do, because research and insights on how these pilots pan out is really important to support the broader ecosystem development. Then we do a lot of partnership facilitation as well. So we help the innovators that we support partner with strategic partners, such as mobile operators, obviously our members. That can be very key for things like digital payments or IoT integrations, but also other strategic partners such as government organizations, utilities, or different enabling organizations. And then lastly, we provide technical advice to different stakeholders in the water sector, such as utilities, private sector innovators, and others on how to integrate different digital innovations into their business or service delivery models, from things like digital payments to IoT. In terms of our GSMA Innovation Fund, we've worked, as I mentioned, we work across a lot of different areas, so these numbers don't just apply to water, but we've dispersed £24 million to over 120 organizations. Over our time, we've impacted 47 million people. And what we're really excited about, after dispersing our grant funding, we've crowded in over 650 million pounds in follow-on funding. So that's a key indicator for us as a program. After our grant, how do we support innovators in their scaling journey through helping them connect with follow-on funders and investors, but also by enabling strategic partnerships. I mentioned mobile operator partnerships naturally being key to our work since we're the GSMA, and we've helped startups build 89 partnerships with different mobile operators across Africa and Asia. And then just here a bit of a picture of our innovation funding in the water sector. I think broadly you can kind of divide our funding into two different streams. So on the one hand, we have B2B innovators, as we call them. So these are startups that are providing digital solutions directly to centralized service providers, i.e. utilities, to help them operate more effectively. And then on the other hand, we also recognize there's a huge service gap that utilities are currently not filling and won't fill for quite some time in some countries. So we support a range of B2C innovators that are supporting, that are providing services directly to low-income communities. Obviously, you cannot so neatly divide them into this. For instance, Drinkwell could be considered both a B2C and a B2B innovator, right, Minaj? But you get the picture. Now, enough from me. I really want to get us to the audience engagement section and also to the panel, where I'll be joined by some great supporters of water innovation and some entrepreneurs that are actually implementing these solutions on the ground. Now, with regards to the audience engagement, I just wanted to pick up on the question where we left off earlier on some of the key ingredients to scaling digital solutions. You've heard a bit more now, you've had some time to think, so maybe you can input a few more answers. I know the QR code is quite small up there, but maybe if you try to zoom in with your camera a bit, you can join. Money, I agree. That's a great answer. Often the right answer. But yeah, if you can input, if you feel like this is too much tech for me and I just want to raise my hand and say something, I can also pick up on that. Let me know. I'll just wait a bit, and we also have a couple of other questions coming up. Just two more. Passive building, great answers. It's nice to see them come through. Partnerships, absolutely. I love. Nice. That's a clear sign. I think money is the winner for this question. So I'm just going to jump to the next one, which is how can the private sector support the digital transformation in the water sector effectively? Also more open-ended. Take risk of that. It's true that some of these word clouds become a bit more intense with different words coming up, but innovation is key. I see closing gaps, absolutely. Increasing capabilities, I assume bringing information, all amazing points, and looking forward to some more answers. Amazing. Great. Collaboration, absolutely. Great. Can keep on typing. I'll just move us to the next one really quickly. So this is you have different options to answer, and here's like what are the challenges of collaboration between the public and the private sectors in water digitization. You know, startups and private sector innovators and government organizations and utilities, they have very different organizational cultures and very different mandates and very different objectives. So how can you actually bring those two together? We'll hear more about that in the panel, but it'd be interesting to hear what some of the key challenges are from your perspective. Lack of mutual understanding, that's great. We recently at GSMA published a toolkit for startups on how to navigate public sector partnerships in the utility sector, and lack of mutual understanding was one of the key points there. Procurement processes I see as a key one as well, which is really interesting. Lack of financing structures to support these partnerships. I think the key thing here is that, you know, there isn't one answer here. All of these matter, and we also have to look at different contexts of partnerships as well. Thanks a lot for your engagement here. I'm going to not take quite as long for the audience engagement as I've planned, because I really want to hear from our panelists. So I'm going to move us along to the next stage. If you feel like still answering or have some thoughts, you can also share those later in the Q&A. So here, just to let you know, this Q&A function will be open throughout the panel on the polling software that you're on. So you can also input questions directly there, and you can also upvote a question that you feel like is really good that should be asked. So we'll take the one with the most upvotes. Obviously, we'll also give you the opportunity to ask questions physically, but if something comes up, it'd be nice to capture it here. So. To the exciting, to the part I'm really excited about, which is hearing from our great panelists. So we're going to have a discussion about the key ingredients for scaling private sector solutions in the water sector. And I'm joined by three amazing panelists. First of all, Kelly Trott from Imagine H2O. If I can please ask you to come up here. We'll hear more about what your organization does in a bit, but Imagine H2O is a leading supporter of water innovation globally. Then could I ask Dixon Maria from WonderKit to come here? WonderKit is one of our star performers, star-performing GSMA Innovation Fund alumni, and is working with several water utilities across Africa. Dixon joins us from Nairobi, Kenya. And then lastly, Dr. Parag Agarwal from Janajal. If I can please ask you to come up here. Dr. Parag joins us from Delhi in India, and is also currently part of our GSMA Innovation Fund portfolio. I'm just going to kick us off by asking the two entrepreneurs to give us a bit of an understanding of what you do. And with regards to with regards to WonderKit, it'd be interesting to expand a bit on how you partner with utilities. And Janajal, Dr. Parag, I would love to hear more about, as you explained your business, how you're closing service gaps and supporting low-income customers in particular. So over to you, Dixon. Do we have the mic on? Sorry, yes, it's on.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, and I'll just get into it. So WonderKit has been around for some time, about 12 years, and we drive positive change in the water sector, water and sanitation sector through technology, and I'll elaborate that. We have a flagship enterprise software for utilities, which plays a very pivotal role in over 30 utilities that we've been transforming across 4 countries, that in West Africa, Southern Africa, and East Africa. And we use technology as a solution that helps utilities bring in transparency, heightened accountability, streamlined operational efficiency, remarkable revenue growth. We've seen that. And our digital solution provides essential tools for both operational and... Is it on? Oh, sorry, okay. Technology. Yeah, so our digital solution provides essential tools for both operational and enhancement, strategic management, facilitating performance improvement. It equips utility leadership teams with organized data sets and comprehensive reports in enabling informed decision making. The scope of our solution, there are a lot of technologies out there, so I thought maybe I can get a little bit deeper in the kind of technology we're talking about. Our solution spans around the entire utility landscape, from digitizing and managing customer data, streamlining meter reading, billing operations and processes, revenue collection, revenue enforcement mechanism, infrastructure management, procurement, stores, staff coordination, and exhaustive financial reporting. So we drive positive change in utilities using these tools. They're modular, so there are some utilities that have some more modules than others. And I think I'm glad I saw one of our major clients here, Nairobi Water, who helped us to begin this journey over 10 years ago. So please give them a round of applause for attending this. Thank you. In terms of the business model, it's transitioned. We've had consultancies, and I'll get into that more later, I think, in the questions. Consultancies that are donor funded. Of course, utilities do go and tender for opportunities or solutions that they're looking for. And there's a new model that we are trying out. I'll talk about it more, but I think it's about time we go SaaS when it comes to utility enterprise solutions. Thank you.
Would you like to play the video?
Yes. I need to quickly play a video from Dr. Parag and Janada. I hope this will work.
Cool.
Sorry, I'll get back to presenter mode. Yes, you can get started. I'll see if I can add it.
No worries, thank you. Hi, I'm Dr. Parag Agarwal, founder and CEO of Janajal. It's been a long, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. GSMA, they've been huge supporters of what we're doing. We've come a long way because of their support, because of because of the discipline they've also inculcated in the teams, and for so many reasons. So let me tell you a little bit about ourselves. We started about 10 years ago. We started by installing static water ATMs. And along the way, so I'm going to just run through this and not take up too much time. But along the way, we realized capacity was being built, but it was not being utilized. And I think this is the bane of the water sector at large. So that is where, even just now, a short while ago, when everybody was listing out challenges, somebody wrote capacity building, but nobody wrote capacity utilization. So oftentimes that gets missed, and therein lies the key to viability, to profitability, to sustainability. Sustainability, I mean financial sustainability. So we kind of assessed that, identified that by going through the whole motions ourselves, and we developed what of course it was a long process, but we analyzed what the gap was, and the gap we thought was the fact that people need to walk to the source of water, collect it and carry it back on their head. That needs to change. Unless water goes to people, the adoption will always be erratic. So what was the way to do it? Because not everybody had piped water connections. Not everybody qualifies for piped water connections. If they live in slums, they live in favelas, they don't qualify for a piped water connection, so they're subjected to dealing with all sorts of irregular sources. So we developed what we call the Janajal WOW, water on wheels. It's a three-wheeler. We started by trying to develop an EV. The EV didn't work because it didn't have the torque to be able to tow water in bulk. So we then moved to a CNG platform, and we collaborated with Bajaj Auto. So as of today, we have a documented agreement with Bajaj that is assisting us in building out the Janajal WOWs. And I wish we could have played that video so you would have got some perspective. But these vehicles now are completely IoTized. They are able to go and to the doorstep of households and deliver water for as little as 1 Indian rupee per liter. I mean, that's almost a little more than 1 euro cent per liter. So that's the price point at which we're delivering water to people's doorsteps, and people are soaking it up. And we have data, we have the qualitative, quantitative, transactional parameters. Nobody has a problem paying a price as long as it is affordable. And the key has been consistency in the service, the way we've built out the entire model. What this has done is this is actually intended to capitalize on the spare capacity on existing water treatment plants. Therefore, there is no need for capacity building. It may be important where there is no water available at all, for example, safe water. But if there is a plant there, it's meant to serve a community. The community is there, the plant is there. What is missing? That last mile connection. So that is where we were able to create that. We showcased it to the government of India. We got picked as one of 5 technologies that the government of India selected and now has recommended it across India to every state to adopt, to meet their respective targets, both on the rural side and the urban side. And we're now gradually rolling it out. We're getting huge support. There is no torpedoing coming in from any of the irregular players, from the so-called mafias, because this is a government project. Every vehicle carries the government logos. So you intercept a vehicle, it's as criminal charge that you're liable for if you do that. And that is one way where I think one of the points was securing validation. Securing validation was very important, and we spent years to trying to work towards that validation. People thought we were cuckoo. We didn't need to do it. We were wasting our time. But eventually, when it's water, there are so many actors both state and non-state, that need to be mitigated, and that need to, so that was something that we were able to anticipate and then mitigate, and then create this model today where even the bad guys come on and they want to become, they want to regularize themselves by operating a WOW themselves. We have a beeline of plants. We have over 300 plants that are already listed with us, wanting to come under our tech platform. Because they see it. I mean, their capacity currently is utilized to 10 to 12%, and in other cases where we are operating with, we're going up to 80%. It's more money in the hands of stakeholders. It's more water in the hands of consumers, and it's a very, very efficient revenue model. So it's viable, it's feasible, it breaks even in 18 to 20 months, in the worst case scenario, oftentimes sooner. And that's where we are. So, sorry, I can keep talking.
Thank you. Great contribution. I just need to make sure we come back to you as well. It was great, Dixon and Parag, to hear about some of your business models, but also your scaling journey, some of the transitions in your scaling journey as well, and what you've had to overcome. Now, turning to Kelly, Imagine H2O has over a decade's experience in supporting innovative water solutions. You've worked with a range of startups. You've helped them raise follow-on funding as well. So from your vantage point, looking also at your entire portfolio of different startups, what are some of the key success factors for private sector innovators in the water sector in terms of scaling and securing investment, and how can organizations like Imagine H2O help these enterprises get investor ready and help them along their scaling journey?
Yes, great question. He did an excellent intro, so I'm not going to tell you about Imagine H2O. But when we look across the portfolio, it comes to pretty fundamental things that make them successful, things that they're talking about already. But I would say first and foremost is that they're solving a real pain point. I think that what we've seen is entrepreneurs come to us with the coolest technical solutions ever, and it's not really solving what anyone needs. So then it ends up not getting bought. So you have to be very clear that you know what you're solving. 2 is stay focused on that beachhead market at first. So something else we see is that people want to solve things all over the world, that their application can have so many different applications. And unfortunately, when you do that, you don't stay focused, you don't nail those initial pilots with your customers, and ultimately you're kind of scattered. The third, I would say, is this is very, very simple across kind of any organization, is building the right team, internally and externally. So I mean, who on staff is with you kind of day in, day out, changing the dynamic, but also kind of who is the ecosystem around you, right? Who are the players that are championing you, and also kind of your board members who's pushing you forward. I really think that that's very key for what we've seen. The fourth is really good capital. This one's hard. I wrote money at first, but it really matters who your investors are and that they're supporting you and behind you and pushing you in the right direction. And finally is communication. I think that we really need to get the story right in order to get it out there. So those are kind of my 5 fundamentals.
Thanks a lot for that. And now turning to Parag, just from a startup perspective, what are some of the key factors from your perspective in terms of securing the right financing and also achieving commercial sustainability to the degree that you can convince investors that the water sector is a space that they can invest in?
So, I mean, that is a challenge to begin with. Having said that, I think we've mitigated that fairly well last 7 years. We've got a strong body of investors. But the journey here on, again, I think one of the problems is there is no precedence. I mean, there's no precedence of what we are doing, of the last mile connectivity story. We've already got POCs in place. We've been operating for almost 15, 18 months now. Recording, clocking huge impact metrics. I think GSMA has been tracking, monitoring, and supervising our projects. I think we've been compliant on all fronts. Having said that, it's unfortunate that, and I'm going to say this, and pardon me if it rubs somebody the wrong way. I think the water sector it's no secret that the water sector has challenges and is unviable. But for funders to want to come to this sector looking for a profit-making operation and be completely de-risked, for me is a problem. I mean, if banks start being risk-averse, then there is a problem. I mean, isn't risk their business? Now, I understand that they don't need to go take risk, which they're not doing in this case. But there are more and more people, there are more and more funds, there are more and more HNIs, family offices who are now stepping up and they're wanting to make a difference. I think a lot has changed after COVID. People have kind of turned more conscientious. They realize that all the money in the world couldn't save their loved ones. So they want to give back. I met Jack, and I was touched by his story. He had a near-death accident, and after which he turned his life on its head and started working in Nairobi. So a lot of things happen to people, and a lot more has happened since COVID. And I think we're seeing a lot more, willingness by people. I mean, so especially those that are making a lot of money in their mainstream businesses, they feel this is a great way to give back. And making safe drinking water available to people is a noble deed in any caste, culture, religion, nationality. So that also sometimes kind of plays its own role, and people want to be part of it in some way or the other. So that's been our experience, and it's only getting better.
Great points. It's a really powerful point also that impact investors sometimes I expect the same returns as other commercial investors, so it's not really clear why.
Can I make a point there? Can I make a point on that one? Yeah. So I call, a lot of these investors who call themselves impact investors, but they want IRRs of 40% plus on their lending. So I call them their impact is like the emperor's new robe. It's not there. It's just to borrow money at a much lower rate from their LPs, but they want to go out and get astronomical returns so that they can pay themselves bonuses by saying that, look, we superseded the expectations or the projections. So I think there are some gaps which clearly need to be addressed, and through introspection, there is no investigation here.
But that's not fair for all impact investors.
I said that.
Okay.
So I said, pardon me.
No, but it's definitely an issue within the ecosystem.
At least if I can chip in there, absolutely. On the utility side, it's been quite interesting, especially as a startup when we started out. We started out with a proof of concept. We were addressing something very, very specific. In fact, working with one utility, which happened to be Nairobi Water, there was a very specific thing that they needed addressed. So it helped us to establish momentum, addressing and working with them on resolving a particular specific issue. What that did in return for us as a startup is we ended up forging a very strong and robust relationship with them. Amongst many other utilities that we started working with, we got an opportunity to begin a consultancy with the World Bank, developing a citizen feedback engagement tool called MagiVoice, where customers could easily report their complaints digitally and have them resolved in an enterprise fashion by the utilities. WASREB, the regulator, picked it up, rolled it out to about 22 utilities. It helped Wonderkid as a startup that time to forge relationships with about 22 utilities. The good thing is, behind us there was the World Bank, but the World Bank left. And we had to grow. We couldn't die after the World Bank left. And sometimes those are challenges that come with startups. You're given this project, you're given this amount of money, you have a very specific goal. When the project ends, what happens to you? So it was the relationships that we developed to the utilities that helped us to stay afloat. And of course, engaging them, having a commercial model that works, having some service level agreement signed, which was very, very difficult. These are public institutions. But I think maintaining a level of financial integrity and accounting for every coin helped us to keep going. And many years later, at least, we've been able to impact more and more utilities.
Yeah, That's great. You picked up on the question I had for you already without me asking it. That's perfect. That's how it's supposed to be. No, really, really interesting points in terms of how to navigate commercial sustainability in the context of working with utilities. You know, also sometimes they think on a project-by-project basis, but you're, you know, a startup that needs to think about its own scaling journey. Kelly, just over to you. I know that in Imagine H2O's cohort, and both in, you know, the US, but also across Asia, for instance, the number of innovators sort of in the B2G space, so you know, startups that are providing services directly to utilities. I remember coming across some fascinating companies like SmartTerra, Fluid Robotics from your portfolio. I'm just wondering, you know, what are some of the key challenges that these startups encounter when they work with the public sector, and how can you and others, you know, help them overcome these barriers?
Great question. I think when we think about B2G, we think about long sales cycles, and getting in is really hard, right? I think that you've experienced this in terms of getting in with utilities. And this is where having really good impact investors behind you that are aligned with you and patient capital to help you succeed in getting there is huge. And I think that's something Imagine H2O has worked on too, is how do we remove that first pilot kind of cost from the equation, either for the entrepreneur or for the end users? And that's where we use grants and debt in order to kind of remove that barrier for first of its kind or scaling projects. And there's other type of capital out there like GSMA that exists for those reasons. And I also would like to hit on that kind of first point I brought up around building your ecosystem. I think if you have champions that you've built within those utilities already, or connections and relationships you already have, that makes the process even faster with the sales cycles. But then I also think it's once you're in with those utilities, I mean, Dixon, you have your first customer here supporting you. Once you're in and you build that relationship, you really want to nail it, because that's where you get recurring revenue and where you're able to be kind of a real business and move forward into the scaling. I mean, we have Tina with Doppler in the audience who's done a phenomenal job with this, and hasn't only just done this with one utility. Once they work with one utility in an area, they're trying to work with multiple utilities and having them talk to each other about the same problem they're experiencing, and then kind of selling their product through that system.
Thanks a lot, Kelly. And I remember, Dixon, when we were talking over dinner the other day, you mentioned that how important, you know, utility to utility word of mouth was in yes. You know, scaling journey, and just having different utilities talk about the impact of your solution on them. So that's really interesting. On that point, I also know that sort of your business model itself has evolved quite a bit to adapt to the unique context of working with utilities in Kenya and beyond. Can you just talk a bit about that and how you're thinking about that, and what your sort of plan is for the next few years with that new product pivot?
Great. Yeah, we started out as with a consultancy with the World Bank, created relationships with so many utilities that got to enjoy the benefits of the platform. Of course, when the project was over, that was in 2014, 2015, the money that we used to get from the World Bank as consultants ended. And so we had to go back to these utilities, engage them, talk with them one-on-one, and see how we can evolve with them. Again, technology changes, and it changes very fast. And two, utilities also change. They don't remain the same. They're public institutions. You have this leadership that comes, and then another leadership comes. And again, every new leadership comes with its own way of doing things. So we had to find a way of transitioning and supporting these utilities. We tried out with having maintenance agreements. There are those who accepted. There are those who are like, go back to the World Bank and ask them to support us in the maintenance agreement, which of course did not work. But those who stood with us, we were able to transition with them, grow with them under a consultancy framework. But that evolution of technology moved again, where we transitioned to tender-based opportunities. What happened with Nairobi Water? A lot of companies started seeing the impact that they experienced over a period of time. They grew their revenues to over 60%. Customers became happy with the service. We had Lilongwe Water Board fly into Nairobi Water to understand how they have transformed. In fact, they won an award, an Africa Utility award after our implementation of our span of 2 years. And so Lilongwe Water Board, amongst many other utilities, bid and said we want a similar solution for us. So we had to get into this tender-based kind of framework of doing business. You look out for tenders, you bid for them, you win some, you lose some, but that came with its own challenges. A tender has very specific requirements. A utility says, we want to solve this bit, and which, of course, you restrict your innovation to that bit. But when you get in there, you start realizing, oh, there are a lot of gaps that the utility has not addressed in the tender specifications. They need a solution, but again, you're restricted to move forward. So again, it became a bit of a tussle. Again, these are public institutions. You're in a place where they want more, but there's no framework. And they don't want to go back to the tender approach, which, of course, the tender approach also comes with its own intricacies when it comes to procurement, conflicts of interest. Somebody has an uncle somewhere, somebody has a daughter somewhere. So we went through all those challenges. And again, tenders also have another challenge. You find they benefit largely the large utilities like Nairobi Water. But if you look at Kenya, we have 90 utilities and a lot more across Africa. Only 10% of them are large. Only 10% of them are able to actually go out there, say we have this budget and we want this kind of technology. The middle and the small ones are left grappling with legacy systems, and they are not able to adapt to the current day technologies. So recently, and I'm talking very recently, like last year, we were like, no, this is a very big problem because the small and medium utilities who are the largest in terms of the population they serve are being left behind. And so we scratched our head a little bit, thinking through the business model. We had to come up to a very tough decision to transition our solution based on where technology is heading to when it comes to software. Make our platform as a service, software as a service. I mean, Microsoft did it. We used to buy Microsoft licenses via disks and all that. Right now, you just, at the end of the month, you have your card swiped. So we were like, can we really do this with public institutions? And on top of that means the money you get from a consultancy, you no longer have it. The money that you get from a tender, you no longer have it. We are building a platform that we're going to give with a test run and a test period for even the smallest utility with 10, 20, 30 connections. Try it out, and if they love it, then now they pay some small subscription fee based on some parameters, number of bills, and a few other things. So we started it out. We launched it at the Water Service Providers Association in Kenya this year, in February. And immediately we got 6 signups of some small utilities here and there. They all were like, we need to transition. We need to get to this technology. We've never had the chance. We don't even have the money. But it's left us with a challenge. And thank God for Imagine H2O, amongst others who are here. It left us with a challenge because we are having to foot in our small savings and our small costs to support these utilities with the bare bones of what we have. So we are hoping that at least we're going to get some help in supporting that in scaling, because we're looking at a utility being able to easily sign up to current day technology and experience an enterprise solution with all the learnings that we've learned over the years working with over 30 utilities to benefit the smallest. So that's how we've transitioned.
Thanks for that, Dixon. And I think the point you made about small and medium scale utilities is so important, because service gaps and service challenges in intermediary cities where a lot of these utilities are located are especially big. So thanks for that, for sharing that and your sort of journey in terms of thinking about the right product development. Parag, over to you, because you've also been a champion with regards to government engagement. You just mentioned that you were selected among 5 startups, and the government of India is recommending you to other government bodies to roll out your service. Can you talk to us a bit about how you cracked government engagement and on how many different levels you also have to engage as Janajal?
If I say all. But yes, I think our ability to work with the governments, and I say governments at large, could be the local administrative bodies, the cities, state, and even the center. that has held us in good stead. That has basically been the mainstay of our, where we are today. It was very difficult. When we went initially, for the first 3 years, they only pushed us back. 3 years, they pushed us back because I've heard this so many times. You guys are going to make me lose my job because if you're going to treat my water, means I'm not doing my job, I'm giving bad water. So now how do you change this perception of theirs? So it took for 3 years, we heard this. Thankfully, those officers got transferred. And then we had a whole new set of, officers coming in place, and we sat them down and said, sir, your water is great. The problem is what people are receiving is bad water, and they're blaming you for it because they're not cleaning their tanks. They're getting dirty water, but they blame you for it. So you're getting a bad name. What are we going to do? We're going to treat the water at the point of dispensing and make you look good. And these guys were wiser. They bought into this, let me put it that way. And so that is how we basically created a conducive environment to start working with them. We never wanted to go out and run ahead of the government. Water is a government-owned, operated utility, I think, world over. It's not privatized anywhere. So we don't want to go there and tomorrow, one day, have them, torpedo us and just shut us down. So today, so one thing we made very clear from the beginning was every system we install, we operate, has to have government embellishments on it. Let the credit go to the governments. We are a mere executioner. And that is our focus, that is our forte, that is our skill set, that is where we want to be. As long as they're on our side and the consumers feel, in fact, the consumers are very happy because there is a private sector company serving them because they have no trust on the government. But because there is a private sector company, they know the quality will be kosher. They know that the service will be consistent. They'll show up every day at our door. They won't take our money and vamonos. So all of this, so it's been a long drawn process. So working with them, keeping that narrative common. And honestly, I say this for all startups, you have to have the willingness to shape policy. Unless you have the willingness, the ability, and the courage to shape policy, you're not going to make it far. It's very easy to go find yourself a small corner in the water sector somewhere, make it your comfort zone, and keep surviving by doing that. But if you really want to make a difference, you want to scale, you will have to shape policy. For that, you have to make friends with the sharks. So there is no point in getting scared of them or steering away from them because they will come and get you. So it's best to go out to them, work with them, tell them how it's a very, I lose the word, symbiotic relationship. It's for everyone's good. Consumers are happy, they are happy. And that's so what we did was, we went straight to the Prime Minister's office. So,
How?
Sorry?
How?
How
did you do that?
How did we do that? Sorry.
Knock that door.
That's what people are going to want.
Yeah, we just went in there and made a presentation to the...
That's awesome.
Yeah. We just showed up there and said we wanted to meet, meet the principal, his in staff, and we showed them what we've got, and we were able to make friends with them, and we started by installing. Our first ATM was installed in the Prime Minister's constituency in Varanasi, at a location called Assi Ghat, which has the highest prominence. And it became big fanfare. We hoisted such a big aerostat with Mr. Modi's photo on it. And all this launch was done on his birthday.
Wow. Oh, that's
So I'm just saying, there are some things that you have to do which are for the optics. But what happens is, it basically casts the die. It basically sends out a strong message to all the other public stakeholders that the big boss is behind this, has blessed this. So now nobody's going to torpedo you. Nobody's going to sign adversely on your file. Nobody's going to shoot it down. Nobody's going to put question marks because they don't know who will be coming calling next.
Thanks.
So-
Yeah. No, thanks a lot, Dr. Bart. So to summarize, shape policy, you know, as a startup, which is obviously very
And hoist
ambitious,
balloons.
but important. Don't stay away from the sharks, but engage them and find champions if you can, the prime minister, because that has a lot of impact. So thanks a lot for sharing that. And those are some great lessons that also resonate with some of our experience supporting various startups and the importance of not shying away from engaging in what might seem a very complex environment that has nothing to do with startup culture. At the end of the day, we are operating in the water sector, and these stakeholders are there, and it's impossible to kind of wish them away. I have a few more questions, but I really want to give the audience a chance to ask questions as well. I'm going to just check on the Q&A side of things. Okay. I will take one from them, and then I'll go to the floor for other questions. Maybe the first one, how to navigate the notion of water having sensitive infrastructure and transparency. How to enhance trust and data sharing between public and private. Dixon, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I feel like that could be one for you.
Okay, great. Navigating the notion of water having sensitive infrastructure.
And the notion of trust between you and the utilities that you're working with as well.
Yes,
How do you
so
establish that?
I think it's focusing more on their challenge, the challenge that they are facing. If you understand the utilities challenge very well, by interacting with them, partnering with them, and collaborating with them from a point of first understanding what challenges are they facing, then it enhances innovation when it comes to technology. And I think the first one, which was a big shift that we had to do, was, like you said, you have to go knock at doors and show solutions that work, that are addressing the very challenge that you're looking at. Transitioning people from using, the staff from using manual-based ways and tools, from meter reading, from fixing leakages and pipes, from addressing customer complaints, being able to transition staff who at times, unfortunately, can get very comfortable with paper. You know, a customer comes and complains, you just write a piece of paper. The following day they show up, following up on their complaint, and you don't even remember where their paper was and who it went to. So we creating those digital tools where the customer feels, or the utility staff feel protected. The utility staff feel that they're not going to get victimized, and that's where we had to knock, especially with Nairobi Water, if I may refer to them because they're here. We had to work on a framework where we requested the management team from the CEO of the utility to have some sort of an amnesty period for staff, whereby if they transition from a manual platform to a digital platform, and then certain discoveries are made with regards to their work patterns, for a period of at least a quarter of a year, nobody's going to be sent packing, or nobody's going to get some disciplinary measure. A good point is when it comes to things like meter reading or billing, you know. So if somebody never used to work, technology has a way of just bringing it out, you know, and showcasing it. When staff knew that they're not going to be sent home, and the CEO made that pronouncement that you guys, we are moving together. If you've not been working, it's your opportunity now to start working, and you're not going to get punished. And that model worked because staff adopted technology. They gained trust with the technology. It became a healthy competitive environment amongst themselves to show who can do better than the other, but using technology. They started getting staff appraisals or their performance evaluation was purely from a technology point of view, from a data point of view, and it built a lot of trust with the staff first. If the staff are working well, the customers will be happy. The customers who are happy will pay for their bills, and that's how revenue started just going up and up and up. So that's the model that we began with the first utility, and we replicated. And everywhere we went, we always had to have this very sensitive conversation with the management team that, guys, one of the things that we strongly recommend for us to get started is, as we transition you, as part of your change management process, please introduce an amnesty period for your staff, and that helped.
Yeah, no, super important point. So just to summarize, change management is really key, and staff members can be hesitant to embrace digitization because of certain perceived risks associated with it. So really interesting practical points. I just want to make sure we get some more questions. Otherwise, I would
one
short point.
Okay.
Point,
promise.
Yeah.
So one of the other accelerators of revenue that we've experienced is the digitization. And when I say revenue, I also revenue from the consumer, because the consumer now can transparently see the quality of water they're receiving. When they know the TDS, when they know the pH level, through a digital medium, they feel supremely confident. There is no other, even packaged bottles do not very overtly display what the quality is. The second is investors. Investors want you to be digitized because they want to ensure that there is no leakage. Because there is cash involved in whether it's, there was a time we were collecting 400,000 rupees, that's almost $5,000 in cash every day. And that too coins of 1 rupee and 2 rupees and 5 rupees. We had shock absorbers of cars crash because the weight was so much. So we had to change all that. So, we went down the cashless mode in 2017. So investors loved it. And that's when they started stepping up further, and because they can trust the entire operating model.
That's a good point, and we as a digital utilities program obviously are very supportive of that, and I'd love to hear that digitization helps with transparency both on the investor and the customer side. I want to open up the floor for questions. I think there's one over there already and another one here. We'll take that one and then you write afterwards.
Thanks so much. My voice, okay, there we go. So I really am grateful that Kelly made, that the first point she made was about a pain point, a specific problem of a client that you're serving, that you are solving. And Dixon, you had made reference, and if with the permission of our representatives from Nairobi Water, what was the pain point that you solved that enabled this relationship to grow? I think that's a really key one to hear. And thank you. Beautiful session so far.
Okay, I'll respond to that. The first pain point that we solved was customers in Nairobi never had a medium of reporting complaints. It was a manual system. And back in 2012, 2013, they used to register an average of 400 complaints a month. For a population of 4 million, that's just, it's just a drop in the bucket. So we digitized that process and provided an enterprise solution where the utilities are also accountable and solve these complaints in a transparent manner. And that increased the complaints not increased the complaints, but complaints went up by the digital medium that we provided to 6,000 complaints a month. However, the complaint resolution time reduced from 6 months on average per complaint to about 14 days. Shock on us was we realized that 75% of those complaints were meter reading and billing. Going back to the ground, looking at the challenge, we realized that they were doing manual meter reading. So we digitized that whole process of meter reading and revenue collection with simple mobile applications. So the transition to where we are today, fast forward to a whole enterprise solution, was evolved by pain points that each of these utilities were having and digitizing them and helping them to become operationally efficient. So it was very targeted. It was not a boardroom solution dumped on the utility. It was targeted to looking at a challenge, digitizing and automating those processes to bring in efficiency. Yeah.
Thanks, Dixon. Over to you for the next question. Oh, for the online audience, I think it would be good. Thank you.
It isn't. Do you want me to? Oh, there you go. Jesus. Okay, so my name is Louise, and I run a startup in Hydromet, so B2G in Southern Africa. And I think one dimension that you talked about, Dixon, is so interesting, that the multilaterals often have a very long pipeline that they develop over years. And in that pipeline of project financing, they often determine the type of technology that they're gonna enable procurements to. And what we're seeing is that it's really tough to get them to transition from sort of the tender-based procurements to software as a service, or in our case, data as a service. And I'm wondering, are you, in your transition journey now, are you seeing that the big donors are more willing and sort of putting in opportunities at the back-end financing for the government utilities to buy your service? And if they're not, are you able to advocate for it to them?
Okay, great. So what we've seen recently over the last 3 years is, of course, donors will work with the utilities. But we find a case where a donor would go to one utility and support them with financing to digitize their operations. They go to one utility, support them with millions of shillings or millions of dollars for digitization. Then a few weeks later, they go to another utility, or they cluster them into 4 utilities with a huge load of financing. But this is the thing. The challenge with one utility is the same challenge with the next and the next. So you pump in $1 million here for this, tomorrow $1 million for the same thing for this utility, day after tomorrow $1 million for the same challenge, only in a different utility. So it's a risk we are taking, where we're inviting donors to come and support and cluster so that you have this platform that looks at the entire ecosystem of challenges across different utilities, build capacity, build a solution, and then now invite utilities, even have a certification sort of process by the donor looking at the challenges of different utilities, so that utilities who need a digitization process, there's no there's sort of a solution that is already provided, donor-backed, to be able to help utilities plug in. And the beauty with that is, even a utilities that is not benefiting from donor financing, because donors definitely look at multiple things. They will look at your data, they will look at your operational efficiency, they will look at governance, they will look at so many things. So a lot of the utilities that are small and medium who do not meet that threshold of financing are left behind. They are still serving people with water, but they're left behind decades because a particular threshold is not met. They're not able to pay back. They're not able to meet that criteria. So the approach, and again, is innovative, is just
sorry,
to try.
Dixon,
Yes.
I have to cut you off because we only have a minute left.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But I hope I answered your question.
I wish this could go on forever. If you have any more, I'm really sorry. I have to cut off because we have to do a wrap up, and the timing is very strict here. But if you have a question, please come up to the speakers after the session, and we'll discuss it. It breaks my heart to have to stop it already. But really quickly, because we're doing this as part of a three-part seminar, where we have 3 sessions. We'd really like your key takeaways, because it would be really interesting to compare them with the takeaways from the previous 2 sessions where Panagis showed you those word clouds. So if you could briefly do that. And in the meantime, also please join me in applauding for our great panel, because Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And please, I know there might be questions that we didn't get to. Please don't hesitate to reach out to them afterwards and discuss after the session. That's what World Water Week is here for. And thanks also again for the abstract presentation, Satoshi for your keynote remarks, and Panagis for the introduction. I'd like to just wrap up the entire seminar as well that we've had here on harnessing the digital revolution at SIWI. The first session focused a lot on what the role of research and academia is in driving the digital transformation of the water sector, some cutting-edge use cases, better understanding the impact of different digital use cases and analyzing them rigorously. In the second session, we heard a lot about the role of development finance organizations, regulators in different countries in mandating and driving the digital transformation forward. And today we've heard from private sector innovators and funders on how you can take, on how they can drive the digital transformation of the water sector. And you know, we in the GSMA focus a lot on private sector innovation, but we recognize that, you know, without research, without regulation, without the role of government, we really can't take forward this digital transformation. And as I close off this session, I would like to also just invite you all to keep the conversation going. You know, we have I've seen a couple of you in multiple sessions that were part of the seminar, so make sure you keep the conversation going, ask questions, identify different research opportunities, so we can meet again in a couple of years and see what kind of progress we've made. And then I'd also just like to say a thank you, in particular to Ala, the young water professional that has supported all 3 sessions here. We really couldn't have pulled this off without you, so thank you so much. And also Joan from Michigan State University, who's been integral for all of these sessions, so thank you so much for that. Also all of our other partners, like the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the World Bank, and so on. Thank you a lot for bringing this together. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions on our work within the GSMA and how we could collaborate on driving digital innovations in low and middle income countries. I hope you enjoy the rest of World Water Week, and thanks again for joining us for the session.